Welcome back to the channel, my friends. This is the Jameson Brandon channel where we talk about all things big picture. Today, we're gonna be talking about central bank digital currencies, Bitcoin, FedNow coin, and really just some macro stuff, right? So nothing too serious going on, just $500 billion in banking failures essentially over the last couple months. SVB, Silvergate, several others. I think PacWest was the recent fallout over the last 24, 48 hours. So that'll probably fall like the others. And so we're already at levels that is greater than the bank failures of 2008, 2009, great financial crisis, right? That was a great financial crisis. And so it's gonna be hard to escape this one. I don't really know where the safe haven is. I don't think it exists. I think it's a series of small micro bets, putting them into positions that you think could merit safety of some sort. But outside of that, if you gotta understand, with the US dollar being the reserve currency, if it does go there, then everyone else is gonna follow and it's gonna be nasty. And there's gonna be a period of time where there might not be a denomination for currencies, right? And definitely in Bitcoin, it's like, that's the question you gotta ask yourself is like, if everything else goes away, what are we gonna denominate Bitcoin in? Now, I think it's been a big mistake since the beginning. I've been very vocal about this, that it was ever denominated in US dollar to begin with, because one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. So we're gonna talk about Operation Choke Point and really just how the central banks, the Biden administration, but to be fair, I think Trump administration would have done the same exact thing under the America First brand, have just kind of corralled crypto into this spot to where publicly it doesn't look good. Now, if you're into this stuff and you're in tune and you're woke, or whatever, awake, I shouldn't say woke, you're awake, you've been red pilled, you probably know about this stuff. So what I'm talking about, you're just like, duh, right? But there's a large amount of the population, they're not sure if Bitcoin is safe. They're not sure if this cryptocurrency stuff is safe. So what better way to completely destroy all public confidence? And I talked about this ad nauseum about how I thought FTX was a Trojan horse that got sent in on purpose to blow up and then blow up the crypto space. And that worked flawlessly. And I said that was gonna be the Trojan horse, the backdoor in for them to roll out regulation and make the central bank digital currencies look good, make the FedNow coin look good on the back of making crypto look bad. So they have to do that because you have to do one of two things. You have to destroy people's confidence in this thing called cryptocurrency and or make it impossible to get. And they've been doing both. So between the FTX failure, the banking failures, all this is not a coincidence. It's all happening simultaneously and it's all part of a bigger thing that's being deployed, right? To get you to think that central bank digital currencies are the answer, or the FedNow or the JP Morgan coin, whatever they end up naming it, okay? What I find interesting is that, just to go on a side note here for a second, the issues that we see right now with regional banks having technically more bond debt exposure and more exposure as a whole in general than previously thought, and it's because they have unrealized losses. It's the same issue that the big banks have. It's just that the Fed wants to protect the big banks and they don't care about the regionals. So at first I thought, oh, well, this is just because they want the likes of JP Morgan to absorb all these smaller banks, so it'll be easier to roll out the central bank digital currencies. That's what I originally thought. I don't know if that's true. It would be easier from a top-down perspective, right? And then they've essentially nationalized everything, and then roll out currency, and then they've nationalized the currency even more so than they have now. Nobody can hide cash anymore. There's Uncle Sam's happy because, taxation is where it should be and where they want it to be. And so, yeah, anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on that is like regional banks and big banks have the same exposure right now, but big banks have more depositors and big banks have more protection from the FDIC, from the Biden administration, from the Fed, from central banks, from everybody. And the regional banks, they just don't seem to care about, which is weird. Like that's your community bank. That's the people that go to bat for you. That's the people that give you a loan when you have a shitty credit score, when everyone else turned you down. And we're gonna just like fry them out. And in the process, like I said, they're creating more and more barriers and boundaries for crypto. So anyway, Operation Choke Point 1.0, gosh, that sounds weird, was rolled out in 2013 by the Obama administration. And it was just basically an attack on legal businesses, legal establishments, but they wanted to force the banks to start to make rules and make change on those trades and niches based on what the FDIC wanted, what the DOJ wanted, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll get into it, but here's the deal. What began as a trickle is now a flood. The US government is using the banking sector to organize a sophisticated, widespread crackdown against the crypto industry. And the administration's efforts are no secret. They're expressed plainly in memos, regulatory guidance, and blog posts. Yes, they're talking about this very, very openly, and I don't think they care who's listening. It's kind of like what we shared in the last video with the equity mortgage program, right? Like they're just doing it now. So anyways, everyone knows that crypto firms, it's extremely hard for them to get onshore banking solutions in the US. I mean, even Coinbase is questioning if they're going to even do business in the US. They're looking at the Bahamas, etc. because they see what's coming down the pipe, right? They're making it impossible for you to get it, which that begs the question, if you don't already have Bitcoin, is that really gonna be the safe haven to go to? If the currencies were to hyperinflate, you can't get it. So you're gonna be stuck. So unless you have it now and that's your play, then okay, cool, you're okay. But if you're not, then, I mean, and those dominoes start falling, there's gonna be no way for you to get it. That being said, how are you gonna get back out? How are you gonna actually transact with people? These are all things that we need to think about now, right? And I don't know if there's an answer to that, by the way. I'm just posing these questions, right? All right, let's dive in. December 6th, Senators Elizabeth Warren, my favorite Native American, John Kennedy, and Roger Marshall sent a letter to crypto-friendly bank Silvergate, which is no longer, scolding them for providing services to FTX and Alameda Research, and lambasting them for failing to report suspicious activities associated with those clients. December 7th, Signature, another big one that's gone. Among the most active banks serving crypto clients, announces its intent to halve deposits ascribed to crypto clients. In other words, they're announcing that they're giving the money back to the customers and shutting down their accounts, drawing its crypto deposits down from 23 billion at the peak to 10 billion, and they exited its stablecoin business completely. January 3rd, the Fed, FDIC, OCC released a joint statement, always a joint statement, on the risks to banks engaging with crypto, right? Which I'm sure you have a friend or two that has had a Chase bank account shut down for trying to buy crypto through it. And now we see JP Morgan being propped up, which it's weird that JP Morgan, it's almost like that's their poster boy. That's who they want to absorb all these banks. But simultaneously, they're in hot water for financing Epstein. And if there's any connection at all, then there's like this huge lawsuit that's unfolding in front of us too. So I don't know. And then my next question is that if all these big banks knew that they were in debt last year, how come all these CEOs still got big fat bonuses? They knew that unrealized losses were huge. Did the unrealized losses just show up this week? Just show up this month? Really? No, guys. The unrealized losses were there last year. They were there several quarters last year. And so I just find it interesting that, like, I remember Jamie Dimon got a fat bonus last year. I remember a lot of other bank CEOs got their bonuses last year. So I don't know, maybe like get it back. Also, on that note, did we ever get the money back from FTX? I don't know. Anyway, just asking questions. Okay, so yeah, joint statement to banks engaging with crypto, not explicitly banning banks' ability to hold crypto or deal with crypto clients, but strongly discouraging them, doing so in a safety and soundness basis. This safety and soundness comes up like 10 times in all this rhetoric. Let's fast forward to January 27th. Here it is. The Federal Reserve denies crypto bank Custilla's 2-year application to become a member of the Federal Reserve System, citing safety and soundness risks. There it is again. I'm sure if we asked Janet Yellen her opinion on it, she would say safety and soundness. It's kind of funny how they almost all sounded the same, like those news networks that all said parroted the same message. Okay, on the 27th, another thing happened. That was a big day for them. 27th was 1, 2, 3, 4. There's over 15 actions that were taken so far by the Biden administration. Just to be fair, I think the Trump administration would be just as bad because the America First agenda, he would have wanted the US dollar to be the reserve currency, so he would have fought just as hard on this stuff. Whether or not he would have like done this, I don't know. 27th, the Kansas City Fed branch denies Custilla's application for a master account, which would have given it the ability to use wholesale payment services and hold reserves with the Fed directly. On the 27th, the Fed also issues a policy statement which discourages banks from holding crypto assets or issuing stablecoins and broadens their authority to cover non-FDIC insured state chartered banks, a reaction to Wyoming Special Purpose Depository Institutions, SPDIs, like Custodilla, which can hold crypto alongside fiat and banking for its banking customers. Also on the 27th, the National Economic Council releases a policy statement not explicitly banning banks from serving crypto clients, but strongly discouraging banks from transacting with crypto assets directly or maintaining exposure to crypto depositors. And again, he's got them all listed out here, and he's really good at citations. I like Nick. Shout out to Nick Carter. This is piratewires.com. I'll give you the link in the description box below, but there's a whole lot more to it. And it begs the question, like, what is safe and sound? Where is the safe haven? So let's end with this. If hyperinflation occurs in the US and globally, fiat currencies are just falling like dominoes, what is the value of Bitcoin? Because there's no denominator now, and the denominator, meaning these fiat currencies, are usually backed by GDP, no longer backed by gold, no longer backed by oil reserves, none of that, by GDP. So what is the actual value of Bitcoin at that point? I think that's a really, really hard question to answer. I don't know if there is an answer to that right now. So what are the currency safe havens? Again, in that situation, I don't know, man. Like, I just think that, again, you're hedging your bets in as many little micro areas as you can. Having a family plan, having it all charted out, a bug out, bug in situation, food, water, ability to be able to, take care of yourself. Remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then you've got yourself set up with some backup plans. And then obviously we're allocated in certain things as well. So let me give you an allocation that I've used up until this point. And this is what I prescribe to. Okay, now it doesn't have to be the same amount. You could be working up to this. Again, just think of what it is versus how much, right? First, $10,000 in United States dollars. It's the military capital of the world. It is the global reserve currency. they're the big dogs, right? They're the big dog at the table. So got to have some of that currency. Next, Singapore. I love Singapore. I've been there many, many times over the last 10 years. It is a melting pot of different personalities, different cultures all over the world, and they get along. They're not at war. They haven't been at war, haven't had anything catastrophic happen to them. Everyone gets along there for the most part. Very, very safe country. And they are a leader with solar and technology and AI. There's all kinds of stuff getting spun out of there because it is such a melting pot. In Singapore, which is considered to be, I don't know, kind of like a hub of Asia. I like it a lot. So 10,000 Singapore dollars because the currency itself is handled well up against inflation, and they've done a great job of staying out of wars, staying out of conflict, and fill in the blank, right? So they've kind of avoided all of that. So they inflate nicely next to something like the US dollar. Lastly is the CHF, and that currency is the Swiss franc. And the reason why is because before, I think it was the Panama Papers were exposed and that really opened the doors to the banking sector in Switzerland, they value a person's privacy. Even since then, they still do. And so I like that. And I think that's important. And so even though they've kind of been exposed and people don't think it's as safe to put your money there, I mean, we're not trying to hide money from the government or from taxes. I'm just trying to make sure that I get a fair shake if stuff were to hit the fan. Switzerland's done a great job at staying out of wars. They've done a great job at just kind of being there and again, respecting a man's privacy. So I like them for that. Gold and silver allocation could be 1 kilo, could be 10 kilos, entirely up to you. And some sort of Bitcoin allocation. I don't even think get involved in alts. I think Bitcoin, because there's 21 million of it. They're not involved in the World Economic Forum like ETH is. They haven't been hijacked or taken over with the ETH Foundation and all these other pieces. I don't like that. I don't like it at all, okay? Now we could argue about sustainability and greenness, okay, all day long, and I'm with you on that. That being said, I still think it's your best option because there's 21 million of them. Can't really get around that, not yet. Maybe when there's like quantum computing and it can actually hack the SHA-256, maybe when that occurs. But for now, that's a fairly safe bet. So again, we're hedging our bet against that. Second, passports, being familiar with traveling the world. I don't know, man, having a private jet on the runway, having a private this, having a private that, like all of these things are just hedges against what might happen. So whether it's going to be central bank digital currency, the Fed now, JP Morgan coin, I don't care what they're going to call it. This is the play being rolled out in front of us right now in broad daylight. They're not hiding it. They're creating choke points within crypto so that you can't get in, you can't get out. And so that tells me that they're afraid of it. That tells me I need to put some attention and some focus on that. But I don't know if that's where I'd put everything to where I'm all in on that. I do not prescribe the same way Bitcoin maxis do, to where they think that you should put your whole life savings in it and just hodl, even though they've been buying and selling and they got weak hands and they lie on social media like most other people do. That being said, it deserves a look, it deserves some allocation, but it really is insane if you take a step back, the weaponization that's occurred of just so many different three-letter agencies against things like crypto, against the American people, social media in general. Like, it's wild, absolutely wild. So it is going to be one hell of a ride this year. But yeah, that's kind of my stance. So thank you for asking whoever it was in the comments about Bitcoin, central bank digital currencies. I hope that describes it. And again, think about that question. What is the currency safe havens? If all of these dominoes were to fall because of hyperinflation and all the banks collapse and where are you going to put your money? How are you going to position yourself? That's what you need to be thinking about. And it's not about being right. I don't care to be right. I just want to have the odds play out in a big enough way that I get through that event. I get through that situation as unscathed as I possibly can. That's how you should be thinking about it too. Thank you so much for watching. Comment below if you got something to say. We'll see you in the next one.